The highly anticipated vice presidential debate was a win-win situation with neither candidate making major blunders. Governor Sarah Palin was both articulate and folksy, following a week of inarticulate sound bites from interviews with CBS's anchor Katie Couric. Senator Joe Biden, well, he showed his expertise on both foreign policy as well as the nation's economy while keeping his off-the-cuff comments to a minimum.
Also, John McCain's maverick position that he's in, that's really prompted up to and indicated by the supporters that he has. Look at Lieberman and Giuliani and Romney and Lingle and all of us who come from such a diverse background of policy and of partisanship, all coming together at this time, recognizing he is the man that we need to lead in these next 4 years, because these are tumultuous times. We have got to win the wars. We have got to get our economy back on track. We have got to not allow the greed and corruption on Wall Street anymore. And we have not got to allow the partisanship that has really been entrenched in Washington, D.C., no matter who's been in charge. When the Republicans were in charge, I didn't see a whole lot of progress there either. When the Democrats either, though, this last go-around for the last 2 years. Change is coming, and John McCain is the leader of that reform.
I'll be very brief. Can I respond to that? Look, please. The maverick, let's talk about the maverick John McCain is. And again, I love him. He's been a maverick on some issues, but he has been no maverick on the things that matter to people's lives. He voted 4 out of 5 times for George Bush's budget, which put us $500 billion in debt this year and over $3 trillion in debt since he's got there. He has not been a maverick in providing health care for people. He voted against including another 3.6 million children in coverage that of the existing health care plan when he voted in the United States Senate. He's not been a maverick when it comes to education. He has not supported tax cuts and significant changes for people being able to send their kids to college. He's not been a maverick on the war. He's not been a maverick on virtually anything that generally affects the things that people really talk about around their kitchen table.
So, Mark Curtis, what did we experience? Theater or issue discussions, or what really went on in that?
Well, first of all, not to parody the debate last night, but is it okay if I call you Belva? Look, politics is theater sometimes, and then politics is sometimes public policy. I think Joe Biden won last night by his sheer competence and his level of experience, and that he did not have to go on the attack against Sarah Palin. I think Sarah Palin won last night simply because she didn't implode on stage. I mean, we had all these dire predictions of her performance and how awful she was going to be, and she came across, for the most part, just fine. There were moments where she was rather scripted, but then moments where she was very folksy and spontaneous. So I think she did fine. She certainly was well above most people's expectations. The problem is, the real issue now is not the debate. The real issue is what we talked about in the last segment here, and that's the economy. I mean, Ronald Reagan ran in 1980 and said, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" Bill Clinton ran in 1992 and won by saying, "It's the economy, stupid." My point is, the economy and the Wall Street meltdown and all of that has now so overshadowed any other issue in the presidential race, including the debates, that's really the issue, and how she did in the debate probably won't matter.
How do you do just fine if you refuse to answer the questions of the moderator?
Well, when I say just fine, I mean, there were some moments when you see those clips where she was with Katie Couric, and Katie asked her a question, and she read the Encyclopedia Britannica for an answer. She went way off and wandered off topic and never came back. I think she was a lot more focused last night on a lot of the issues. Certainly, anytime you have a debate, sometimes questions don't get answered. That's true for both sides. But I think the expectation, the bar was set so low for her, people really thought it was going to be a disaster and she'd freeze up and go running off the stage, and she didn't do that. I think she did just fine. But I don't think it matters.
I think they used to call it rope-a-dope when Muhammad Ali was in the ring. Yeah. But does this at all change the momentum of the race, though? It seems the economy clearly is helping Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And I assume if you're behind, as the Republicans are, you want a game changer.
Look, 2 weeks ago, this race was dead even. Not only in percentages, but dead even in projected electoral votes. Within the last week, we have seen the polls change in Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia, 3 traditionally solid Republican states. If you're watching in the Eastern time zone on election night and any one of those states goes to Obama, just pack it up and go to bed, because McCain has to win all 3. He has to win Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida, and it's over. But now the polls are changing, and Obama's ahead in all 3 states.
And McCain is pulling out of Michigan, which is pretty significant.
Well, I don't think he ever really had a chance in Michigan. His best chance in the industrial Midwest is in Ohio. It's in Missouri with an outside shot at Pennsylvania. He has to win at least 2 of the 4 I just mentioned. If McCain loses Ohio or Missouri, and those are on the central time zone, so if you see those go down election night, go to bed. What I'm saying is maybe we don't have to stay up all night on the election, but there's still time for this to change in the next 3.5 weeks.
Do you think Governor Palin's exceeds expectations performance last night means we're going to see more of her in the final month? Or,
well, I think you better. I think the McCain campaign made a huge tactical error by boxing her up and hiding her. Look, we're all journalists here. We all write about the topic of the day, whether the newsmakers talk to us or not. And so we're all blogging, we're writing our news columns, we're commentating on the air about Sarah Palin, whether she does any interviews or not. I think they should have unleashed her right out of the Republican convention, let her do Katie Couric and all the morning shows and CNN and do everybody and get rid of the mystique. When you don't talk to folks in our business, then there's a mystique, and it's like, well, what are they hiding, and where is she? And then when you do talk and you make one little mistake, it gets magnified.
But if you're a small market, small government, anti-interventionist based Republican, and we've just had this enormous socialization of risk in America, how do you square that up when you're running?
Well, if I was running their campaign, I'd have her campaign in Republican strongholds, the Florida Panhandle, places, you know, where Barack Obama got in trouble making fun of rural America and people clutching to their guns and their Bibles. I would send Sarah Palin into every swing state, into communities like that, and solidify that support.
The base.
Yes, solidify the base. It's the mistake that the Democrats made in 2000 when they didn't send Bill Clinton into heavily African-American areas to campaign. Al Gore asked him not to campaign for him, and it was a tactical mistake. This time the Republicans can't repeat that.
What were the issues, though, what did we learn from them about the viewpoints of each of the campaigns?
Well, I think one of the issues last night where she did fairly well was talking about energy, because, you know, that's a big issue in Alaska, and she, you know, spearheaded attacks on the oil companies in Alaska that wound up with a rebate to most people in Alaska. I think most people in America would like to see if they win a similar rebate passed against the oil companies nationwide, so we'd all get a rebate to pay for the gas, the $4 a gallon gas. So I think she made some points there. Certainly, I think she sounded more competent on the war, and when she talks about the fact that her son is going to fight in the war, I think gives her more credibility on the issue than perhaps some other foreign policy issues she talked about last night.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to know, do you think that the tactics that she's using, will they be long-lasting? As far as her aversion to talking to the press, as far as sticking on message, as far as not even answering questions during debate. Will we see these tactics down the line?
You know, I think there's a certain charm in attacking the press because, let's face it, very few people, I mean, we're in a weird industry. Most people don't like us, but they consume what we do. Yeah. And so I think that gets a little old. You can attack the press all you want, but sooner or later you have to do interviews with us. It's part of the you know, it's like people complaining about New Hampshire and Iowa. They're 2 tiny little states that have an inordinate say in who gets to become president. Well, it's part of running the gauntlet. And part of running the gauntlet, I remember when the late Tim Russert used to meet the press, they call it the Russert primary. We're part of the system. Whether you like us or not, you got to go through the gauntlet.
And one of the things we have to do is we talked about Sarah Palin, her strong points. What about Joe Biden?
Well, Joe Biden, I think, you know, he just comes across as someone who's been there a long time. Now, people always talk down about how it's bad to be a Washington insider, but you look at the depth of experience he's had in foreign policy, runs the Foreign Relations Committee. He was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, 36 years in Washington. Look, Joe Biden was put on the ticket for the very same reason Dick Cheney was put on the ticket with George W. Bush, to shore up the lack of inexperience perceived at the top of the ticket. And he brings the same qualities that Cheney brought to Bush.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The big debate.